I never thought the things I learned as a Navy SEAL would ever matter in suburbia. Turns out they mattered the day. 3 men in counterfeit. Tactical gear tried to put fear in my family, and one of them put his hand on my wife. Before we get into it, drop a comment telling me what country you're watching from. I want to see how far this craziness reaches. It started like any other Saturday. Emma, my wife, was in the front yard pruning roses while I cleaned out the shed. I had been sorting old deployment patches and manuals, thinking about nothing heavier than a cup of coffee and whether the mower needed gas. The neighborhood was quiet, kids on bikes. Mr. Patel walking his dog, the usual cul-de-sac hum. Then Emma shouted. Right across the street, a matte black van had rolled to a stop. 3 men climbed out wearing tactical vests with shiny police patches sewn on. At first glance, they looked legit, until you actually looked. Their belts rattled with plastic accessories. One badge looked too new, the other 2 were the wrong size. None of them had radios clipped to their shoulders. Real officers always have radios. It's a small thing. But for anyone who's dealt with real law enforcement or real tactics, it sticks out. One of them, lanky, with a fake lieutenant bar glued to his collar, strode onto our lawn and barked, HOA enforcement. Step aside. Ma'am. He shoved a laminated ID, my wife pointed out as she backed toward the porch. Emma, always level-headed, smiled like she was dealing with a salesman. Since when does the HOA send armed officers? She asked. The man shrugged like he expected the question. We're here on behalf of the neighborhood association. You've been non-compliant. I heard the exchange and walked to the front gate. I kept my voice normal. The way you speak when you don't want to rile someone up before you size them up. Who hired you? I asked. The leader gave a little laugh and said, the president of the HOA, she's tired of your truck. Your sign, the barking dogs. We're here to settle things. That should have been the moment they turned around and left. It wasn't. One of the other men took 2 steps forward, reached out and swatted Emma's phone right out of her hand. The phone hit the lawn, screen spiderwebbed. She bent to pick it up, and he smacked her across the cheek like it solved everything. The sound of that slap, more than the pain, is what froze me. It was the sound of a boundary crossed. I don't do fist pumps or chest thumps. I do tight, efficient things that end problems. I told Emma to go inside. She hesitated, then obeyed. She knew, I think, that I needed to handle it. I set my jaw and walked toward them. Face to face, I said, you have 20 seconds to identify yourselves and explain why a private citizen is being assaulted on his property. They laughed. The leader barked, you going to make us leave? This isn't your fight. This is HOA business. That's when the second guy, the shortest of the 3, fumbled at his belt and pulled something that looked like handcuffs. Cheap metal, obviously not police grade. He pointed them at me like he'd seen it in a movie. I moved without thinking about being polite. My hand clipped his wrist, twisted. The cuffs clattered to the grass. He yelped. I didn't need to hit him to make my point. The movement alone put him off balance. The third guy swung a collapsible baton, nothing practiced about the swing. I stepped into the arc, grabbed his forearm, used his momentum to trip him forward onto the driveway. He landed hard. The leader tried to keep his posture, tried to shout, "You're assaulting officers!" I didn't raise my voice. I leveled it. You just assaulted my wife. You're impersonating officers. You're trespassing. If you move, you're not walking out of here. For anyone who's been in combat, the worst thing in those split seconds is a bluff that looks like confidence. I could smell it now. Cheap cologne, sweat, fear masquerading as bravado. I grabbed the leader's vest to keep him from bolting and held him against his own van. He squirmed like a fish out of water. Emma was on the porch with her phone up, recording. She shouted, "I called the sheriff!" Which was a relief because I wanted official backup on scene before things got uglier. 2 neighbors had come out and were now watching from across the street. When the patrol car arrived 15 minutes later, which felt like an hour, it was all over. Deputies jumped out, weapons holstered only as far as procedure allowed, and took control. They separated the men, pried off the fake patches, and began reading them their Miranda rights before they even realized how deep they were. Those IDs turned out to be novelty plates from an online store. The men swore the HOA president, a woman named Marta Hargrove, had hired them to teach us a lesson. The deputies didn't buy it. Neither did I. At the station, the story unraveled fast. Two of them, under the cold light of interrogation, confessed. They'd been hired for cash to intimidate residents who were problematic, the ones who refused to follow petty rules or complained about the board. Marta Pierce, yeah, different name, had outsourced intimidation to a few. Guys who were good at looking, official. The deputies were horrified. Impersonating an officer, assault. The list was long. But the shocker was Marta herself. She didn't come quietly. 2 days later, she filed a civil suit against me, claiming I used excessive force and damaged the HOA's reputation. The audacity. She hires thugs to assault my wife and then sues me for defending her? That's a level of entitlement I'd seen in other countries, but hope didn't exist here. My attorney liked the irony. You have video from Emma, you have witness statements from neighbors, and those men admitted under oath they were hired. This is cut and dry. He filed a countersuit, assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, civil conspiracy. I added harassment and racketeering on the advice of counsel when the evidence suggested it wasn't a one-off but a pattern of intimidation. The courtroom was packed the day the judge heard the motions. Marta arrived in a crisp suit, a face like she was auditioning for a daytime court drama. Her lawyer kept whispering to her, and she kept glancing at the gallery like she expected a standing ovation. Emma squeezed my hand under the table and looked me in the eye, calm. That look of hers steadies me more than anything. We played Emma's video for the judge. The recording is blunt and merciless. The men stepping off the van, the plastic badges flashing under the sun, the slap, my approach, the takedowns, their attempts to flee. The courtroom went quiet. The deputy who'd handled the case took the stand and explained. The chain of evidence, the fake. Vests bagged, GPS records on the van matching their statements. The cash trail to Marta's HOA account. Marta's lawyer tried to twist it. Called them private security. Contractors claimed we'd tunnel visioned on them. The deputy's face said it all. No licensing, no registration, no radios, no dispatch logs. That's not a security firm. When it came to my turn, I stayed brief. I'm not a violent man, I told the judge. But I am a husband, and I will not let strangers assault my wife on our property. She was hit. She was threatened. I restrained people until law enforcement arrived. The rest is evidence. The jury didn't need romantic speeches. They needed facts. We gave them facts. Plenty of them. The verdict? The judge dismissed Marta's lawsuit and ordered her to pay my legal fees and substantial damages to Emma for the assault. He also referred her to the county prosecutor for criminal charges related to conspiracy and hiring people to commit assault. The 3 men were charged with impersonating officers and assault with a dangerous weapon, their weapons being the baton and the threat of authority. 2 of them received sentences. The leader took a plea and got community service and a permanent criminal record that will follow him for life. For Marta, the sanction was worse than jail. The HOA board was dissolved. She was removed, and she lost the ability to hold any position in a homeowners association in the county. The community that had once stood behind her stopped returning her calls. After court, the sheriff pulled me aside and said, "You handled it the right way. You restrained, you recorded, and you didn't escalate beyond necessity." That meant something. It's easy to be proud on adrenaline. It's harder to keep your cool until the rulebook catches up to the chaos. People messaged us for weeks. Neighbors thanked Emma for recording. Others said they'd been too scared to speak up about Marta's tactics. We ended up filing a class action with a few households who'd experienced similar harassment, false citations, threats, and fabricated HOA violations. The case revealed a pattern. Marta had been using fear and the threat of legal action to push people into compliance, and when that didn't work, she outsourced muscle. The county changed HOA oversight rules after that. New transparency, better reporting, mandatory licensing for private security. Small victories, but ones that make a difference. I've had a few viewers ask whether the fight was necessary. Wouldn't calling the sheriff have been enough? In an ideal world, yes. In reality, someone's wife got hit. You can't rewind the split second before a hand comes down. All I know is this. I made sure Emma was safe. I stopped them from hurting anyone else that day, and we used the law to finish the job. It's messy, but sometimes the system needs people who will document Stand firm and follow through. If you liked this one, hit like and subscribe. I've got more HOA horror stories that don't make the morning paper. And if you ever find yourself dealing with someone claiming to be an officer, remember these quick things. Ask for proper ID. Look for radio gear and official markings. Never let them on your private property without cause, and record everything. If you can, get to a safe position and call your local law enforcement immediately. Emma's cheek healed, the phone was replaced, and we put the patches back in the box for memory. A reminder that the past isn't always behind you. Sometimes it's the thing that protects the present. Marta's reign ended with a court order and some well-deserved shame. The neighborhood got quieter, friendlier. People started talking again. And me? I keep the patches nearby, not to brag. Just to remember that some lessons, discipline, preparedness, the speed to act save more than missions overseas. They save the people you love. All right, tell me where you're watching from and if you've got a wild HOA horror story. I'll read the best ones in the next video.